this. Yeah. Show me what you want. Come on, show me what I'm working with. Yeah, show me what I'm working with. Yeah. Show me what I'm working with. Do it, mama. Yeah.
So good morning students, once again we meet for our Tempest class, and in our last class we had done the first page from your textbook, and we will now proceed from page number 106. So I urge all of you to take out your textbooks, open on page 106, and if in case you are using a textbook which is different from the one which I am using, then please take out Act 5 Scene 1 and come to the point where we had left off, and let us begin with our class. So we begin with page 106 according to my textbook, that is Act 5 Scene 1, and here on your screen you can now see the text as well as the explanations and page 106. So let's see what Prospero and Ariel are talking about. We know that the royal party, that is the king, Gonzalo, and also Antonio, Sebastian, and the others who are attending on the king, that is King Alonso of Naples, they have been kept in a very confused state by Ariel according to the instructions of Prospero, and Ariel was giving the description of how Gonzalo was weeping and tears were flowing from his eyes down his beard like icicles melting. So let's continue with that. From eaves of reeds, your charm so strongly works him, meaning to say that tears are flowing down his beard, just as icicles can be seen formed at the edge of roofs. And then in the morning sun, when these icicles start melting, water drops from them, and that is what is being mentioned here. Eaves are the projecting portions of roofs, as you can see the explanation given alongside. Of reeds are reference to thatched cottages. So reed is actually a naturally occurring plant which is dried up and often used for the purpose of making roofs, especially for cottages. So if you now beheld them, your affections would become tender, meaning to say that if you happen to see them now, you would also start feeling sorry for them. So your affections or your emotions would also be tender or become tender. So this is how Ariel describes the condition of Alonso, Gonzalo, and the others of the royal party. Now this is very surprising because being a spirit, Ariel does not or should not actually have human emotions. Such feelings are only very, very human, but here Ariel displays that kind of sentiment. So this surprises Prospero, and Prospero says, "Dost thou think so, spirit? Do you really think so, spirit?" And Ariel says, "Mine would, sir, were I human." Yes, sir, my spirits at least would have become, or my emotions would have at least become tender if I were to be a human being. So Prospero is surprised, and he says, "And mine shall, hast thou, which art but air, a touch, a feeling of their afflictions, and shall not myself, one of their kind?" So he says that it is really surprising that you are but a creature of the air. If you have a tender feeling for their distress, shall I then not feel the same, because at least I am a human being? In other words, shall I not myself feel their distress, because I am also a human being and I have similar passions like them? So he goes on to say, I am one of their kind that relish all as sharply, meaning to say that I feel as sharply or keenly the same emotions which those people are feeling right now because they are under my spell. Passion as they, be kindlier moved than thou art. Now this means that I have passions just like they have, and so I am more deeply moved to pity by their plight or their unhappy condition than you are, because you are a spirit. Let's put it in simpler terms. What Prospero means to say is that if by being a spirit, even though you are a spirit, you are able to feel those emotions which these people are feeling, then I, being a human being just like them, should I not feel those emotions even more than you are able to feel? Do you understand? This is what Prospero means to say. That if you are a spirit and you feel sorry to see their condition and you are becoming emotional, then I am a human being just like those who are suffering. That is Alonso and his companions. So should I not feel sorry for them even more than you are feeling sorry for them? You are after all a spirit, not a human being, whereas I am a human being just like them. So this is what Prospero means to say. Then he says, though with their high wrongs I am struck to the quick, yet with my nobler reason gainst my fury do I take part. The rarer action is in virtue than in vengeance. He means to say, though I feel deeply hurt, though I am deeply hurt by what they have done, I am not at all happy with what they have done in the past. Though I am not happy with what they have done in the past, yet I shall rather be guided by logic and reason. I am struck to the quick, yet with my nobler reason, that is with logic and reason, I should be guided than my hatred. That is, I should not be guided by hatred, but I should be guided by logic and what is more reasonable. And then he says, my anger, my fury, against my anger, I want to use my reasoning ability and I want to do something which is more reasonable rather than wreaking my vengeance or taking revenge on these people. Because the greater virtue is in being reasonable than being revengeful. What Prospero means to say is that the goodness of a person is judged by his reasoning abilities and his actions based on his reasoning abilities rather than his actions based on anger and feelings of revenge. So I don't want to take my revenge on them. See, remember, this play, nowhere in this play does Shakespeare highlight the fact that for the past offenses of the offenders, whether it is Antonio, whether it is Alonso, or even Sebastian who helped Alonso, Shakespeare does not profess the idea of taking revenge. He professes the idea of forgiveness and freedom. So you often get a long question on this particular theme that Shakespeare uses in this particular play. You often get a long question from the Tempest that forgiveness and freedom are the keynotes of the Tempest. So we have, as I told you, come to the concluding part of the play, and here it is time for, because everything is in Prospero's hands. Now all his defaulters are in his grasp. What we saw in The Merchant of Venice, we saw bloody revenge being aimed at by Shylock for the past offenses of Antonio against him, Antonio and his friends. But now you are doing another play of Shakespeare where it is forgiveness and freedom. Freedom for all, including Ariel. Ariel does not require forgiveness because he hasn't done anything wrong against Prospero. but he will also get his freedom, and so also the offenders of Prospero. They will all be forgiven at the end. So this is the falling action. The climax of the play is on, and now the falling action will take place, as I told you in the previous video, and eventually Prospero will use his logical thinking, his reasoning, and his good judgment, because after all, he is not a man of vengeance. He is not revengeful by spirit, and he will forgive everyone, but not before they are repentant. They should feel sorry for what they have done. And as I told you in the previous video when I was discussing the introduction of this scene, the only person who does not show any repentance in this group is Prospero's own brother Antonio, the usurping Duke of Milan, the one who had usurped or unlawfully taken over from him the dukedom of Milan. So that, barring that particular character, that is Antonio, the rest of them are repentant. They are sorry. In fact, Alonso, who had been so instrumental in the exile, in exiling Prospero and his infant daughter 12 years ago, is the one who apologizes. He clearly says sorry when the time comes. So anyway, let's see what happens. So he says, they being penitent, the sole drift of my purpose doth extend not a frown further. Since they are repentant, penitent means repentant, the sole drift of my purpose, that is the only intention now which I have, is not the slightest, is not to display the slightest anger hereafter against them. Since they have felt sorry, since they are repentant, I will not show my anger any further. Go, release them. Go, free them. Ariel, my charm I'll break. I am going to break off my magic spell so that you can release them from the bound of my magical spell. Their senses I'll restore. I will restore their senses. They have all become so amazed and confused and wild. They are not in their own senses. I will restore their senses so that they once again start to think and behave like normal human beings. And they shall be themselves. And they shall once again become what they are supposed to be. They shall be once again back to their normal selves. Ariel says, I'll fetch them, sir. So Ariel goes to carry out the task. Exit Ariel. Prospero is now invoking, calling spirits. Spirits of the air, spirits of the forests, spirits of the brooks, of the lakes, of the groves, of the hills. So he is invoking them, he is calling them. This is a speech given by Prospero to the spirits who are all invisible, and he is saying, ye elves of hills, brooks, standing lakes and groves, O you spirits who live in the hills, who live in the brooks, who live in the still waters of the lakes, and who live in the groves or forests full of trees, and ye that on the sands with printless foot do chase the ebbing Neptune, and also those spirits who playfully chase the sea water without leaving any footprint behind, because spirits, they don't have bodies like human beings, so they don't leave behind any footprints. So printless foot, because the spirits, they playfully run around on the sea beach. As the waves come in, they try to run away from the waves, and when the waves start moving back into the sea, they chase after the waves, but they don't leave any footprints behind. So that is what he is saying. And ye and you all who on the sands, without leaving any footprints, chase the ebbing Neptune. Neptune here refers to the sea. Neptune is traditionally the god of the sea. Mythology says the god of the sea is Neptune. Just as in Hindu mythology or in Indian mythology, we call him Varun Dev. So Varuna or Varun Dev. Similarly, in European mythology, the sea god is called Neptune. So ebbing Neptune refers to retreating god of the sea, ebbing tide in the sea actually. And to fly him and try to run away from him when he comes back. What happens in the seashore? Those of you who have been to the seashore, you have experienced this, that the sea water keeps on coming in as waves, and these waves break upon the shore and then again go back, and then again a fresh surge of waves comes towards the shore. So this is a continuous process. The waves keep coming and going back. So when the waves come in, these spirits, they run away, and when the waves start moving back, they know that the waves are now going back to the sea. They try to chase them on the sand. So then he says when he comes back. So here refers to the waves coming back. You demi puppets that by moonshine do the green sour ringlets make. And then he calls out to the small or tiny creatures. The meaning is explained here. You can see demi puppets that by moonshine, that you, some of you spirits who are tiny creatures, small creatures, what do? You, when the moon shines in the sky, that means at night, you make green ringlets on the grass. You make green rings on the grass when you dance in a circle. So you make green rings in the grass. Grass is green, and when these invisible spirits at night, when the moon is shining, when nobody is around, they dance on the grass in circles. And the place where they dance, the grass gets flattened. So circles of flattened grass are actually formed in many places. And in the next morning, what happens? When the cattle are brought out for grazing, what happens? The ewe not bites, whereof the ewe not bites. Meaning to say that when in the morning the lambs or the sheep are brought out for grazing, they do not eat the grass in those areas where the circles have been made by you, because you have stepped on the grass and you have flattened them and you have turned them sour. So the ewe is a female sheep. An ewe is a female sheep, and it does not eat the grass of that particular portion because that has become sour. So he's calling out to those elves and fairies, those spirits. And you, whose pastime is to make midnight mushrooms. He calls out to yet another group of spirits or fairies who are responsible for making mushrooms at around midnight. You see, mushrooms are found overnight. The previous day, you don't see them, and the very next morning, you find them as if they have grown overnight. So mushrooms are mysterious outgrowths from the ground, and these were thought to be made by spirits overnight, because no plant or tree or no sapling or no reed or no creeper can grow so much overnight. So mushrooms occur after midnight, and the next morning they are visible. So very often in those times, in Elizabethan times, in the times of Shakespeare, it was believed that the mushrooms are actually creations of spirits who come at around midnight and make them grow. So I call out to those spirits also who make or who are responsible for making the midnight mushrooms, that rejoice to hear the solemn curfew. So you are the ones who rejoice when you hear the evening bell. Why do they rejoice? Because they know that with the ringing of the evening bell, where does the bell ring? The evening bell rings in the church. It's time for evening prayers, and that means the ringing of the bell signifies the end of the day, when people will pray and repair to their own homes, and the night will be deserted, and then it will be the time or the hour for the spirits to come out and take over the earth. So that's the reason why they rejoice when they hear the bell. They know that now it is their time beginning, because the human beings will now go home. Nobody will be outside, and so the spirits will be freely able to play about, enjoy, have fun and frolic, and do whatever they normally do. So I call out to those spirits who rejoice to hear the solemn curfew, by whose aid, weak masters though ye be, I have bedimmed the noontide sun. With the help of you, I have, though you are not very powerful spirits, you are small spirits, not very powerful spirits, but with your help, I have been able to make the sun, make the noontide sun, meaning to say the sun which is supposed to be the brightest during noon, I have been able to make it dim with your help. You see, Prospero had to create the tempest, and in order to create the tempest, he had to dim the sun. He had to fill the sky with clouds, thunder clouds, dark clouds. And you remember that in the opening of the play, we had Miranda asking Prospero if he was responsible for creating the tempest, and she had at that time said that the sky, it seems, will rain down pitch because it was so black, so dark. So that reference once again comes back here. Prospero says, I am calling all you little spirits, tiny spirits, spirits who are not so powerful, to come down here because I need your service. And then he says, called forth the mutinous winds, and twixt the green sea and the assured vault set roaring war. Now he means to say here that with your help, with your supernatural powers, I have not only darkened the blazing sun at noon, I have raised unruly winds. I have set the green sea and the blue sky at strife, and I have caused the thunder to rattle in the sky. So I have, with your help, done so many things which are not possible for a human being to do without the help of such spirits. So even if you are not so strong in your supernatural powers, I invoke all of you to come here. So he says these words, and then he says, to the dread rattling thunder have I given fire. Okay, I have explained that. And rifted Job's stout oak with his own volt. So you see, he says that I have created thunder, artificial thunder, with your supernatural powers. I have been able to create Jove's thunder. Jove is the other name for Jupiter. It's explained here. Jove is the other name of Jupiter, who is the king of the gods, and he is also the god of thunder. So Job's oak, the reference here is to Job's oak, and he says that I have, with the thunder that I had created with the help of the spirits, I have even destroyed the thick-trunked oak trees with the thunderbolt. And it seemed that Job was cracking open his own tree with his own thunderbolt. So I have been able to do that. Now the oak is sacred to Jove. It is believed, or it was believed, that this oak tree was something auspicious, and it related to Jove, or the king of the gods. So just as in India people worship the peepal tree or the banyan tree, they say that it is related to God some way or the other, some deity, some god or goddess. Similarly, in European mythology, the oak tree is sacred to the supreme god or that is Jove or Jupiter. So I have actually cut open Jove's stout oak with his own bolt. The strong based promontory have I made shake. Promontory refers to high land that juts into the sea. So something which has a strong foundation. It's a kind of peninsula, you can say, jutting out into the sea, a portion of the landmass which has a very strong base or foundation and which juts out or which is projecting out into the sea. I have been able to make it shake like an earthquake by means of my powers, and by the spurs plucked up the pine and cedar. And I have also been able to uproot trees like the pine tree or the cedar tree. So by means of my magical powers, which I actually could exercise because of you, the not so powerful supernatural spirits whom I am calling now, with your help I have been able to do all these things. Graves at my command have waked their sleepers. When I have wanted it to happen and when I have ordered, even the graves have opened, and those who are dead, those who were lying inside their graves have also come out. So are we talking about zombies? Well, quite possible. Though it was not a zombie apocalypse at that time when Prospero was around. But then he says that my magical powers have been so strong because of these tiny supernatural creatures or spirits with whose help I could exercise my magic to do all these things, including opening the graves and bringing out those who are inside the graves. The sleepers are the dead who are sleeping inside their graves. Oped means opened, and let him forth by my so potent art. And I have let them out by means of my powerful magical art. But this rough magic I here abjure. But then Prospero says, I am now, right here, going to give up on my powerful magical art. I don't want to use it anymore. I no longer want to use my liberal art. I have done enough and I have used it enough. Now I give up. I want to finish it up. The same thing as Shakespeare means to say, as I told you in the previous video, plus the voice note which I had posted in Friday's class, that William Shakespeare is calling it the quits. He is retiring from show business. As I told you, he was a businessman. He wrote his scripts only to produce his plays, direct them, act in them, and earn popularity as well as money from them. So he says that this art of mine, this magical art, if you think from the point of view of William Shakespeare, if you consider Prospero as Shakespeare, then it is Shakespeare telling us that he has decided to give up his art. His art form of composing plays, he wants to give up. He has done enough. He has made things happen. He has written plays in which graves have opened up and those who are dead have come out. You must read Hamlet, Prince of Denmark. He has made supernatural occurrences to take place. In this play, The Tempest, we have seen. If you read A Midsummer Night's Dream, there also you will see. There are many such plays in which he has made use of the supernatural. In Macbeth, you will see. In Hamlet, Prince of Denmark, of course, you will see. So, he says that I want to stop using my magic. I want to stop using my supernatural capabilities. I abjure. I give up. And when I have required some heavenly music, which even now I do, and whenever I have required some divine music, even now I need a divine music to work mine end upon their senses that this airy charm is for, so as to utilize this music to work upon the minds of those people who are right now charmed by me. Is Prospero only talking about the heavenly music by means of which he casts a spell on his defaulters? No. It is also Shakespeare who is talking about his music. His plays are musical, by means of which he has charmed his audience. They are so charmed that they watch spellbound and they appreciate, they enjoy the performance which they see before them in the Globe theatres. So he says, whenever I needed music, I could produce music and I could use it as a charm to attract those who are spellbound by me. So it is not just Prospero the magician, it's also Shakespeare the magician. If Prospero's subjects are Alonso and his companions, then Shakespeare's subjects are his audience. We, us, his readers. So whenever I needed music, I used music. Even now I need it to work mine end upon their senses that this airy charm is for. I'll break my stuff, bury it certain fathoms in the earth. He says, now it's time to break my magical stick. And what is Shakespeare's magical stick? Of course, his pen, by means of which he wrote his magical plays. So he says, it's time to break my magic stick. Prospero says, I will not only break it, I will bury it certain fathoms in the earth. Fathom is a measure of depth. So I will bury it after breaking it deep inside the earth. And deeper than did ever plummet sound, I'll drown my book. Plummet is supposed to be a device used by sailors in those times to measure the depth of sea water, especially when they came nearer to the shore. They had to keep on measuring the depth of the sea water so that their ship would be safe. So it was a device which would actually make some sound once it was lowered into the water. The vibration or the sound would be useful for the sailors to judge the depth of the seawater. Today the ships make use of a device called an ultrasonic device fitted in all ships called the sonar. It's a device called the sonar which sends ultrasonic sound waves down to the bottom of the sea, and the reflection of the sound is captured in the monitor, by means of which a mapping of the depth of the sea can be seen on the screen in front of the captain of the ship. And that's how the ships navigate today. But in those times the plummet was used for measuring that sea water depth. So he says, I will bury my stick deep inside the earth after breaking it, and I will throw my book of magic into the sea water in such a deep area of the sea where even the plummet will not be able to plumb or measure its actual depth. So as he has asked for music, solemn music can be heard. Suddenly, solemn music starts playing and Ariel enters the scene. And after following Ariel, we have Alonso with a frantic gesture. He is amazed, dazed, confused, bewildered. He has a bewildered look in his eyes, attended by Gonzalo, Sebastian and Antonio in the like manner. They are all, with amazement in their faces. They are following Ariel. Of course, they cannot see Ariel. They are just following the music. Solemn music, because Prospero was talking about solemn music. It is the music in which all his magic actually lies. And by means of this music, earlier too, we have seen Ariel draw Ferdinand towards Prospero's cell where he met Miranda. And later on, we have seen the same music once again, which was followed by Caliban and Stefano and Trinculo, and even the royal party. So once again, it is the music which draws them near Prospero's cell. Attended by Adrian and Francisco. Who are these two? These two are lords. or noblemen of the king's court, Alonso's court. So they are also there. They all enter the circle which Prospero had made. Now this circle is the area where they will be standing, and they won't be able to move because this is a charmed or a magical circle. And there stand charmed. So they enter the circle, Ariel brings them into that circle, and there they stand in a condition of, you can say they are spellbound, and they are standing there, which Prospero observing speaks. Now, once his audience is ready, the ones who had committed so many offenses in the past against him, it's time now for the showdown. So this is the peak of the climax that we have reached. A solemn air and the best comforter to an unsettled fancy, cure thy brains. So he says, this solemn music, which is the best to provide you with comfort, and your brains will then be cured. Your brains are now disturbed, but this solemn music is going to cure you of all your disturbance, mental disturbance or confusion, now useless, boiled within thy skull. Because right now your brains have become useless and they seem to be boiling inside your skulls. So he says that this solemn music is going to provide the comfort, and your boiling brains which are inside your skulls will gradually soothe and calm down, and then you will be able to understand what I am saying. Now these characters, they cannot do anything right now. They cannot move, they cannot speak, and they cannot really react in any way whatsoever, because they are under Prospero's magic spell. But they can hear Prospero, and they can understand, because the solemn music is soothing their brains. So their bewilderment will be disappearing little by little, and they will be able to understand all that is being said to them. So this is the point where we stop for today, and we will continue again in our next Tempest class. So I hope I have been able to make you understand the next two pages. We have just finished page number 107 and 106. So 2 more pages done from Act 5, Scene 1, and I hope you have been able to understand. If anywhere you find anything confusing, especially this long speech or soliloquy of Prospero, where he is invoking or calling the spirits, you can pause and go back and listen to my explanation again and again, so that everything becomes clear to you. Please read the notes given alongside to understand more, and then we can proceed with page 108, 109 and so on afterwards, once you have all understood, and once we have completed the understanding properly.